I think today's girls actually have it worse in some ways than girls in Juliet's period. They're bombarded by messages that value is in how they look, how thin they are, how large their bra cup size is. We should not relinquish our girls' welfare to hype, to the marketing surrounding so-called celebrities who role model atrocious behavior, or to a culture that sends so many mixed messages about the value of females in our society. By the tender age of 10, when girls are most impressionable, those celebrities like the Lindsay Lohans, the Paris Hiltons, the Jessica Simpsons, and the Miley Cyruses, and their life views and confusing, over-sexualized marketing messages begin to take hold in our girls. They marginalize our girls. They need safe places where they can just be girls and become strong enough to stand up to the marginalization. And that is Girl Scouts for so many girls. Now, as we age, we also appreciate better how people must come first. Family always. This, too, is something that's not for sale. As a working mom, I learned more about myself and the fine art of juggling, and I know many of you in this room juggle every day. You know, I always get asked, do you think a woman can have it all? Can she do it all? And I say, no, not every day, not all the time. The metaphor I use is juggling balls, and every day I have so many balls I have to juggle. And some days I drop one, and some days I'm a better mom, and some days I'm a better lawyer, and some days I'm a better this or a better that. But the one ball that we have to be very careful of because it's made of glass, and that's your family, the people you care about, the relationships. And I tell this story, another true story, when I was at the Federal Communications Commission. I had a telephone line that my family knew was reserved for them. If there was any emergency, they were to call me on that line, but otherwise I wanted them to go through my assistant, because I had a lot of people in and out of my office. It was a heavily lobbied office, unlike the labor board. And one day I'm sitting with 3 CEOs of over a major issue, and millions of dollars to each of these CEOs, one of the actions that the FCC was thinking about taking. And the phone rang. And of course, you know, my heart started racing. I thought, well, something terrible's happened. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe they'll think it's the president calling. So I picked up Commissioner Dennis, and my daughter, the daughter formerly known as Ashley, is hysterical on the line. She's about 12 at this time. And she's, Mommy, Mommy, the 3rd goldfish has just died. I knew this was serious. I mean, we had been trying to keep goldfish alive. But I thought, I don't want these CEOs to know I'm going to talk about the dead goldfish. So I waited a second, and then I thought, okay, Ashley, I want you to analyze. I didn't say Ashley, I didn't say anything. I just said, I want you to analyze the situation, gather the facts, assess your options, and get back to me with some prioritized recommendations. She didn't laugh. Some have told me this is the reason she changed her name. Probably. Anyway, so there was this long silence. These 3 CEOs are getting kind of antsy, and so I repeat. I want you to gather the facts, analyze the situation, assess your options, and get back to me. Another silence, and she says, Mommy, is somebody there with you? You know, and I got to tell you, one of my few regrets in life is that I didn't tell those 3 CEOs I had a really serious issue here with my daughter and her dead goldfish. It takes real courage in the work world today. It still takes courage, even all these years after I graduated from law school, to acknowledge that our family, and I don't mean just kids, I mean it's parents or brother, whatever it is, the people you cherish, that they mean more to us than the job. We have to be tough enough not to compromise this or our own code of ethics. I think acknowledging personal issues takes precedence, helps men and women be better parents, better sisters and brothers, better children. We need to be able to do that. We just don't have enough family-friendly policies. We shouldn't cheapen it or devalue it. And I tell my kids, you know, that one thing I really, I was talking with somebody else who said she was too honest to a fault. And I've been described that way many, many times, as she's just too honest. I don't know how you can be too honest. But I told my kids about lying because I think lying is one of the worst things that one can do, that it's a slippery slope. You know, to me, I liken it to something that I really do care about, and that's shoes. First time that I saw a $100 pair of shoes, I thought, oh my goodness, I cannot afford that. That is ridiculous. And then after the first time I spent $100 on shoes, I thought, I think it's pretty easy, right? Slippery, slippery slope. Don't start it, I told my children. And I remember I was sitting, this was a lawyer thing in Dallas, and a bunch of us older, mature lawyers were mentoring younger lawyers, and I especially love to do that with Latinas. And we were seated at the table, and somebody had heard me speak, and how much I value honesty. It's just so critical. And she said, Patricia, I'm going to ask you something. I think I know the answer, but I just want to hear what you'd say. She said, my daughter and I, a 16-year-old, were at a spa, and I had made facial or some beauty treatment reservations for the two of us. And the daughter was 15 and not yet 16. And the spa said, she's 16. And the mother lied and said, yes. And I said, yeah, that was wrong. What did you teach your daughter? Instead of doing what she could have done is say to the spa, she's 15 and X number of months, I will sign a waiver, I know you've got concerns, but, you know, not teach her daughter that it's okay. She said, well, it's a white lie. I think that sets a pattern. It's just a slippery, slippery slope. The other thing that I think is really important is kindness. I used to say niceness. People think that niceness sometimes should take a backseat to getting ahead. I disagree. I think we're hired for what we know, but we're fired for who we are. It's hard for us women, though, to be nice, to be kind, because then people think that we are can be pushed around. You know, it's a little bit more difficult for us. They test us a little more. So I say, be firm but nice. The fourth life lesson of the Caliber Way is to be tough but fair. And what I mean about that is that hold people accountable for their actions and take responsibility for your own. When I was on the labor board, I was once introduced by a union lawyer who said, you know, she's a Reagan appointee, and she worked, I represented management when I was in private practice. And he said, but you know what, she would not be my first choice if I were appointed, but I think she's fair. She's tough, but she's fair. And then a management attorney got up and said the same thing, and that really was the greatest compliment I think I had. Because what you really want from decision makers is that they reason forward. They gather the information they need to make a decision, and then they reason forward. And today we have so many decision makers who will decide what they want to decide, and then reason backwards to try to make you think that they thought through it. But we really need more, not results-oriented thinking, but reasonable, fair thinking. And hand in hand with fairness is not getting a big head about success that you may reach. Woodrow Wilson said there are those who come to Washington, and you can substitute Austin, and grow in their jobs, and then there are those who come and just swell up. You want to remain the one who grows in their jobs. And the thing that always kept me centered was my parents. My dad passed 3 years ago now, but when he was a sergeant in the Army, and my mother was a GS-5. She worked as a clerical at White Sands. She took the bus every day to White Sands. And when I was first named by President Reagan to the Labor Board, I was 36 years old, and I thought, oh my gosh, I am really making it. You know, I mean, this is a big deal. I was a labor lawyer, and now I got to decide labor policy for the country along with 4 other board members, and I was getting confirmed by the Senate. I was just really full of this stuff. But Mom and Dad were not impressed. Lifelong Democrats, I thought maybe that's why. They don't really like Reagan, they didn't vote for him, you know. But, so I invited Mom and Dad and my grandmother, Nina Romero from Carlsbad, to Washington, D.C., and they got a tour of the White House with then Vice President Bush, and the Secretary of Labor swore me in, and it was, you know, just a glorious day. Mom and Dad were not impressed. I thought, what do I have to do? So we went back to the Labor Board office, and I had 22 lawyers who worked for me. And my assistant had segregated the files into GS levels. And she put little stickies on them, GS 15, GS 14, GS 11, 12, so forth. And Mom happened to notice these little stickies. And she turned to me and she said, "Are you supervising GS 15s? I said, "Yeah, Mom." And she turned to my dad and she said, "Oh, Porfirio, this is an important job." No, she didn't really believe it until then. And you got to put things in words that people really understand. Then she asked, "Oh, what's your secretary?" We call him secretary. Said, "What's your secretary?" I said, "She's a GS 10. A 10? The general at White Sands doesn't even have a 10." So she knew her daughter had made it. But and last this evening, but certainly not least, in my cowgirl way of ethics and leadership, it's the course to pay it forward. One small action by one individual, paying a favor, something good that someone's done for you forward instead of back, has an exponential effect, and it can change our world. We cannot forget that in a few short years, 1 in 5 teens is going to be Hispanic. Today, Latinas are in crisis. They have these ugly statistics, the highest teenage pregnancies, highest dropout rates, and this is the worst statistic of all. 1 in 7 of our teenagers, Latina teenagers, attempt suicide. 1 in 7. Organizations like Girl Scouts, and that's why it's so important to support Girl Scouts. It is a powerful antidote to these terrible, terrible statistics and can reduce them. When I was chair of the Girl Scouts, we did increase our percentage of Latinas while I was there, but we still don't reflect the true slice of the population. We need to do more. We need to expose all girls, not just Latinas, but all girls, to worlds they've never even thought about. You cannot dream big. You cannot dream out of yourself unless you've been exposed to those different worlds. We need to expose our girls to those. So that's part of my cowgirl way. It's a way of life where ethics and morals and values are honored. And everyone needs a creed to live by. And you've heard some of mine. So I like to think it's similar to the principles by which Juliette Gordon Low lived her life as well. So to end, I'll repeat what my youngest daughter remembers now as Mom's words of wisdom. Yeah, we were at some function, and Alicia was with me. She was still in high school then, and this managing partner of a big law firm, he said, "You know, your mom gives a lot of speeches. When you're in government, you get a lot of talks." And he said, what words of wisdom have you gotten from your mom? And I said, "Yeah, Alicia, what words of wisdom?" Thinking she'd say something really wonderful, like, "Of course I said." And she said, "Mom, you don't want me to say." I said, "What?" She said, "No, Mom, really, you do not want me to say." So the senior partner said, "Oh, come on, you know, I've heard your mom give talks." And I thought, "Yeah, come on." She said, "Well, you know what my mom says? Life's a bitch and then you die." So, after that, this is now my words of wisdom. Be careful of your thoughts because they become your words. Be careful of your words because they become your deeds. Be careful of your deeds because they become your habits. And be careful of your habits because they become your character. And be careful of your character because it is your destiny. Thank you all. Thank you. Take questions? Sure. I'm paying for the wedding. Yes.
Okay, so we're dying to know what Ashley.
My daughter, the daughter formerly known as Ashley. Well, okay, another really sad story. She married a guy named David Siegel, S-I-E-G-E-L. Well, I don't know if they really got married. They were on a beach and a Buddhist monk was chanting and waves were rushing in. I have no idea if they got married. But anyway, they're now divorced. And when they got married, though, she and he decided they were going to pluck a name from thin air, Sophia, S-O-P-H-I-A, and take that as their last name. His parents quite rightly said, rejection of heritage, don't do it, we don't want you to do it. And he, unlike our daughter, cares what his parents think, so they didn't do it. But they hyphenated it. So he became David Sophia Siegel, she became Haya Sophia Siegel. Haya is the name she took. Haya is from L'chaim, living a life, right? Okay, it gets better. So, they're now divorced. David dropped Sophia because he thought it was a dumb idea all along. She dropped Siegel because they're divorced. She doesn't want that. And my God, oh, my precious little granddaughter is Delilah Luce Sophia Siegel. That little thing. When she gets into school, you know, all those little blocks, she got to fill your, she's not going to have enough. But anyway, I'm going to have her come stay with her abuelita in Texas and go home and say, I'm going to be called Ashley Elizabeth. Anyway, so now my daughter is Haya Sophia. She was born Ashley Elizabeth Diaz-Dennis. Anyway, any other questions? Obviously, I'm not over it. I can't believe I'm not over it.
Patricia, could you just talk a little bit about your experience as president of Girl Scouts USA?
Ooh, president of Girl Scouts. Did everybody hear my experience as president of Girl Scouts? It was a humbling experience. It was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Because, you know, at the end of the day, you want to leave the world a little better than when you found it. And when I came in, we did some really, I had a wonderful CEO to work with, Kathy Cloninger. And Kathy was a Girl Scout forever. She led the council. She was CEO in Nashville and San Antonio and a number of places around the country. She really loved Girl Scouting. And we decided with the board that there were 315 councils around the country. So you had a number of smaller councils vying with each other for funding, for media attention, for a lot of resources. You know, there weren't a lot of resources to share among some of these smaller councils. So we had demographic studies done. And for 2 years, one thing about a women's organization, we talk things through. So for 2 years, we talked about what would be the best way to reorganize Girl Scouting. So we went from 315 to 112 councils. And we have fewer but very strong councils today. That was hard work. We went around to a lot of, and I was working for AT&T then, my last job, and they were very supportive because Ed Whitaker had been chair of the board of Boy Scouts. So when I went in to see him and told him that they were going to have to give me a lot of time because we needed to get this done, and I needed to work with Kathy, with the chairs of the boards around the country, and then she would work with the CEOs, he couldn't say no because he had been chair of Boy Scouts. And certainly, whatever we do for Boy Scouts, we got to do it for girls. So it was an extraordinarily gratifying experience. I did focus on Latinas because, you know, it's a culture. Girl Scouting is not in our culture. It's looked at as something for rich kids, you know, rich girls. And so we did a lot of things with having dinners at schools, for example, and inviting the whole family, because it's a family affair, right? And so exposing in San Antonio, we really upped the number of Girl Scouts. Because I think it just changes their lives. And it changed mine. I was a Girl Scout. So, any other questions? You all want to go? Yes, back there.
I heard you say your father was Porfirio. Any relationships with Porfirio Diaz and Mexican president?
I wish. We would have had a heck of a lot more money. No, my dad's name is Porfirio Madrid Diaz. Exact same name. My grandmother must have loved the dictator. But there's just no relationship there. It's wonderful though. My son has just married a Chilena, and they just had a little girl. She's now 2 months old, so I'm I have my second granddaughter, and her name is Adriana Madrid. They named him named her after my dad. So Adriana Madrid Dennis. Great girl. And actually, I'm encouraged by that because I do think if we all, with intermarriage, and we all become chocolate, we're going to quit fighting with each other, don't you think? Anyway, any other? Okay, thank you all. You've been a great, great audience.
Thank you so much, Patricia. You are an amazing cowgirl. You are a legend in Texas, and you are certainly a legend in Girl Scouts. We are so thankful that you came here, and we do have a gift for you. And of course, it's a Girl Scout bag filled with Girl Scout cookies. Thank you one more time.